Marc Zicree, Mr. Sci-fi, also known as Marc Zicree Space Command. It's been an amazing few weeks. Elaine and I were in London pitching TV shows and movies, an amazing time, and then came back and jumped right into Comic-Con with our Space Command panel and signing and media interviews with Doug Jones and much of our cast and crew. We'll be sharing that material, our panel, and the first 5 minutes of Space Command, which we debuted at Comic-Con very, very shortly. But I wanted to spend a few minutes just kind of talking about some of the movies that have been coming out and my thoughts about them. I've been catching up, and I saw Star Trek Beyond and Ghostbusters and even the new Bourne movie. and I just wanted to kind of talk about these things because I've been, chewing it over and also watching the original films on which these movies are sequels and or reboots. And so let's start with Star Trek Beyond, because I did a video recently talking about Paramount's edicts on fan films, which means the end of Star Trek Continues, the end of Star Trek New Voyages, and I was also checking those out a bit. Many of you know I co-wrote with Michael Reeves, and Elaine and I directed and executive produced Star Trek New Voyages, which starred World Enough in Time, which starred George Takei, was nominated for the Hugo and Nebula. You can watch that episode in its entirety at marczicree.com. I'm very proud of the work we did. But but let's talk about Star Trek Beyond. First of all, there have been a very public feud between George Takei and Simon Pegg about the new movie having outing Sulu as gay. But when you watch the movie, it's simply that he goes off the ship and he's greeted by a little girl who I guess is his daughter, and a young Asian man that he puts his arm around. It's probably his lover or his husband, but could easily be his brother. If you didn't know that it was outing Sulu as gay, you would just assume that his family was greeting him when he got off the ship. It's extremely, let's say, oblique, which is in keeping with a movie that, in its own way, is meant to be summer entertainment, and it's kind of like, I don't know, previously chewed food. And everyone's working hard with that, and with Ghostbusters, and with the Bourne movie. No one is coming from let's just throw off something and not do a good job. Everyone's working hard. Everyone's trying very, very hard to do something of quality. Simon Pegg loves Star Trek, and and he's the co-writer of the movie as well as playing Scotty. But I think, I went back and I watched JJ's original Star Trek movie from 2009, and I was even on the set of that film a couple days. And in that film, it really is trying to reboot Star Trek. It is coming from a character base. I think it's a much better film. And of course, it divided the fans. The old Star Trek diehards didn't like it, many of them, but it made a lot of money. It did reboot the franchise. But the new one, there's a lot of things in it that's like, oh, this seems very by the book. It's like, okay, there's a motorcycle chase at one point, and it's like, well, why is he on a motorcycle? Why would a spaceship have a motorcycle on it? It didn't make a whole lot of sense. And Idris Elba has always left me a bit cold. I know many people really love him, but for me, I just don't know. But it just kind of seemed by the numbers in a lot of ways, and there's a big difficulty in terms of character chemistry, whereas the original Star Trek cast, Shatner, Nimoy, DeForest Kelley, had great chemistry together, and the other actors had wonderful chemistry too. George Takei, Nichelle Nichols, Walter Koenig, James Doohan, truly wonderful, and they kind of meshed. They seemed like they liked each other. They seemed, particularly with the four, Takei, Koenig, Nichelle Nichols, and James Doohan, and many of the feuds between Shatner and Nimoy have been publicized. But again, in terms of in the films, they seem to care about each other. There seemed to be a bond. And in the new Star Trek movies, the actors are all very, very solid. They're very, very good, but they just don't seem to quite click. You don't really believe that Spock and Kirk are friends. The Dr. McCoy is just, again, it's okay. Everyone's working hard, but it's not quite clicking. And so it's an entertaining film, but again, a bit empty, a bit forgettable, and everyone's putting in a ton of effort. But it just, I wish them well. Maybe the next one will be better. But it just, you say to yourself, well, could this really be something that would bring a fan base together in the ways that the original TV show and films did? And you just don't get that feeling. It just feels more like kind of Hollywood entertainment to me. And then we get to Ghostbusters, the female Ghostbusters, and of course there's been an enormous amount of controversy over that. I think I disagree, of course, with the controversy. I think it's absolutely fine for there to be female Ghostbusters. I think the cast is very strong. The movie was funnier and more entertaining than I thought it would be. Not a great film, but certainly an entertaining one. Chris Hemsworth is great as sort of the himbo. He has many very, very funny jokes. And by the way, I went back again with the first J.J. Star Trek movie, and he's terrific in that as Jim Kirk's father who sacrifices his life. I understand he's going to be back in the next Star Trek film. That'll be interesting how they twist and turn time to have that work. But Chris Hemsworth is a terrific actor. Some of the movies he's made have not quite clicked, but he certainly deserves to be a star. I think he works extremely hard. I think he's extremely talented. And but I mean, the Ghostbusters movie was a lot of fun, and yeah, I don't think it's as strong as the first Ghostbusters, which is one of my favorite movies. And again, something else to recognize, and this isn't talked about much, but I think it should be talked about, which is that when Star Trek debuted, it was a revelation. There really hadn't been anything like it before. It threw you in the deep end of the pool. If you watch the first two Star Trek pilots, you're there in that world with the transporters and the communicators and that whole world, and it doesn't explain things. It just jumps in and does it extremely well, and at the time, watching it as a kid, it was phenomenal. It was week after week. Those episodes were not like anything that had ever been done on television before. And people talk about how bad the special effects were. Au contraire, they were phenomenal for the time. Nothing on television had ever had that level of effects. And I still love those effects. The transporter, the phasers, the Enterprise itself, just terrific stuff, terrific. And Ghostbusters, when it first came out, again, there'd been no movie like it, nothing like it. A comedy, horror, fantasy, modern day extravaganza. And again, there was great chemistry between the leads. And I wrote for Real Ghostbusters, which we basically, I think I wrote 4 of those. And it was an animated show and basically we were given the marching orders of just like write sequels to Ghostbusters. And they sent us a VHS tape of the movie. It was not out commercially yet, and we got to watch it and just kind of inhale those characters in that world and that sensibility of satire. And so the original Ghostbusters was terrific. And the new film is very fun. I mean, in order of the Ghostbusters movies that have been made, I'd rank it second. I think I'm not a big fan of Ghostbusters 2, but the first film is sort of the revelation. Go back and watch it again. Some people find it dated. I do not. I think Sigourney Weaver and Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd and everyone in it is phenomenal. It's just a great film. And then finally, even though this isn't science fiction, we get to the Bourne movie, and I just want to talk a little bit about that because again, they're working hard, but it's just by the numbers. Okay, you have the car chase, you have this and that, and then you go back to the original film, and it's again fresh, and it's coming from a character perspective. And again, if you look at the emphasis on character in the earlier Star Trek and Ghostbusters and even the Bourne franchises, and you see the characters are interacting. It's about, Wrath of Khan is about those characters colliding with each other and about Spock's death, and Ghostbusters is about those people, all within, a well-structured story, a well-structured plot, full of surprises. And the new films, far less. And they seem much more like they're playing their structural games. And, I think it's very, very hard to be original. It's very hard to be fresh. But, and these are entertainments, and these are big studio entertainments, and they cost a ton of money. So, all 3 are entertaining. All 3 are sort of fun summer movies, but I don't think they're going to be the movies that change the world. Though I think of the 3 of them, the most fresh and the one that has the most original material is the Ghostbusters film. And, the characters are a little hinky. They're a little, you're watching and saying, okay, who are these people exactly? Whereas in the original Ghostbusters, it was very clear. But again, I think there are many talented people in all 3 films. And so I just kind of want to chime in a little bit about that. It'll be interesting to see where Star Trek goes. And I think also it'll be very interesting to see where the new Star Trek TV series goes and what they do. I really think Star Trek is very similar now to Sherlock Holmes, where we're going to have various iterations that aren't strong, and then every now and then someone's going to have, something that comes along and really revitalizes that specific group of characters, that specific universe. So more power to everyone. It's a wonderful creative time in many ways. It'll be fun to share Space Command with you, because this is my attempt to do something fresh and fun in the science fiction universe, and timely, commenting on our world and the need for compassion in our world, and the need to reach across boundaries and barriers, and bring love and compassion as counterweights against evil, chaos, hatred, fear. Much more to talk about in days to come. So that's it for now. Just wanted to kind of chime in and touch base and talk about these things a little bit. But we'll talk again soon. Marc Zicree of Space Command, Marc Zicree, Mr. Sci-Fi. Take care. Bye-bye.